In the bustling city of Nairobi, Kenya, destiny wrote an African folktale unlike any other. A 23-year-old homeless pregnant woman, Amina, crossed paths with a 47-year-old billionaire, Daniel Kamau, yet neither knew the other's true burden. Out of kindness, she helped him save his empire from ruin, not knowing he was the CEO of a collapsing company. Their story, filled with compassion, sacrifice, betrayal, and redemption, would transform lives forever. Elders say, kindness is the only wealth that grows when shared. This is the story of how a homeless woman became a CEO, how a dying billionaire left his legacy in the hands of mercy, and how a child named Nuru became the light of Nairobi. Nairobi throbbed like a drum at dusk, matatas flashing color, street vendors singing bargains, clouds dragging slow shadows over the Ngong Hills. In a doorway where rain once scribbled its memory, Amina Naliaka pressed both hands to her 7-month belly and whispered, "Little moon, stay brave." She was 23, unhoused, soft-spoken, and iron-willed, the kind of strength you don't see until it lifts you. Elders say, a city tests the heart the way fire tests clay. That evening, the test arrived in quiet shoes. A tall man in a charcoal hoodie paused, watching the traffic and her calm. He hid a cough behind his fist and studied the way Amina shared her last mango slice with a stranger. Kindness, like a spark, leapt the gap. The drumbeat drew them closer, though neither yet knew the song. Hunger comes like a whisper and becomes a drum. Amina traded a smile for yesterday's bread, then broke it with the care of a midwife, half for herself, half for a barefoot child. When a pot boils, it sings for everyone, the grandmothers say. The child's laughter rose like steam, and the man in the hoodie looked away so no one would see his eyes moisten. He had sat in many rooms where food was counted by accountants, not mothers. He took one step toward Amina, then another, as if the earth itself were pushing him gently forward. Somewhere above the matata horns, destiny tuned a string. If kindness is a key, tonight it searched for a lock. "Excuse me," the man said, voice careful as a glass lamp. "You watch people. What do you see?" Amina studied him the way a midwife studies breathing. "I see leaks," she answered, nodding at the matata queue. Coins miscounted, fares shouted, chalk rubbed away by rain. If a calabash has a crack, it doesn't matter how sweet the milk. He wanted to say his business was a cracked calabash bleeding into the dust of debt, but he swallowed the confession like a bitter pill. "How would you fix it?" he ventured. Amina's answer was simple, like clean water. 3 columns. Earned, owed, missing, and eyes that do not lie. The drumbeat in his chest found a rhythm. Amina salvaged a cereal box flap and a pencil stub from the gutter. She drew 3 columns with a midwife's steadiness. Earned, owed, missing. 3 questions tame a storm, she explained. Who benefits? Who signs? Who looks away? The man nodded as if each word unlocked a door he'd held shut. "I'm Daniel," he offered, stopping short of saying Daniel Kamau of Kafara Group. Names can be nets. He wasn't ready to be caught. "Come tomorrow," he said instead. "I'll bring tea." Amina smiled. Tea makes truth sit down. Evening unrolled its neon scroll. Oil hissed, onions preached, and bargains floated like prayers. Amina moved stall to stall, mapping small efficiencies, a shared ice chest here, a rotating guard there. "Even ants form armies," she told Daniel, who typed notes while an ache stitched his ribs. He hid the pain with practiced calm. Sickness is a thief that wears velvet shoes. She explained how simple ledgers could stop tiny leaks that drowned big boats. "Numbers are people in disguise," she said. He realized he'd forgotten to see the people. Rain began like a rumor and became a choir. Tin roofs drummed, gutters spoke in silver tongues. The city's neon blurred into a watercolor of patience. Amina and her unborn child waited beneath a corrugated awning as warm drops stitched the air. The tall man from yesterday stood beside her, choosing his words the way a surgeon chooses instruments. "Come tomorrow," he said. "Help me organize something bigger." He did not name the place. Secrets can be bridges or traps. "I will come if the tea is hot," Amina replied, steady. Elders say, where truth sits, fear stands outside. The baby's gentle kick answered like a knock on a door the world had yet to open. Morning peeled back the clouds and unveiled sharp light. Amina followed scribbled directions to a glass and stone tower where a bronze rhino emblem glinted like an eye that never blinked. Her breath slowed. The city seemed to hold its own. Security glanced at her dress, then at her belly, judgment flickering like a moth, until the lift doors parted and the man stepped out transformed. Charcoal suit, silver tie, the weight of choices inhabiting his shoulders. "Tea?" he asked with a gentle smile. "Truth," she answered, realizing the stranger belonged to this tower. In folktales, a gate opens when humility knocks. "Walk with me," he said, and the lobby's marble echoed a promise she could not yet name. They chose a corner room with windows that framed Nairobi like a promise. On the desk, chipped ceramic mugs, strong tea, and a stack of ledgers that smelled faintly of dust and delay. Daniel set pride aside and spoke plainly. Projects stalled, suppliers who were ghosts with bank accounts, expansions that ate money like uncontrolled bushfire. He said, "A place I care about instead of my company, because ownership can become a mask." Amina listened the way rivers learn to carry silt without losing their way. "The granary has rats," she said softly. "Give me a week among your people, drivers, cleaners, receptionists." Numbers confess faster when their owners are heard. In the steam rising between them, an agreement took shape. Tea, truth, and time. Amina walked floors instead of dashboards. She greeted drivers where key hooks jangled like small bells of responsibility, thanked the receptionist whose eyes noticed more than a camera, and asked cleaners which doors slept at noon but woke at midnight. Where perfume walks at midnight, secrets wait at dawn, the elders say. Workers unfolded their worries gently, like shirts they feared to tear, because Amina's listening made room for courage. Daniel trailed at a respectful distance, seeing how humility opened doors that titles kept closed. Each truth was a thread. Together they began to weave a map of the unseen. By sunset the conference room glowed amber. On a whiteboard, Amina drew rivers and dams, suppliers, cash paths, dotted red, rat trails. She circled a storeroom that slept at noon but feasted at midnight and underlined a vanity expansion that drank money like a thirsty field. 3 columns, 3 questions, she said, marker tapping like a drumstick. Who benefits? Who signs? Who looks away? The team fell silent, the kind of silence that hears its own heartbeat. Daniel felt relief braid with shame. Sometimes kings do not see the cracks in their own palaces. Tomorrow, Amina concluded, we open doors and let sunlight do the counting. At noon, they opened a door meant only for midnight. Dust rose in sheets, startled like spirits. Shelves groaned with duplicate invoices, phantom inventories, boxes heavier with lies than goods. A manager stammered excuses about tradition, about how things are done. Amina's gaze was steady. A road may be old, but if it leads to the swamp, we do not keep walking. Daniel's hand did not tremble as he signed suspension letters. The silence afterward was the sound of rats fleeing before sunlight. At a tin-roofed cafe where steam curled like secrets, a small vendor unfolded a crumpled ledger. His hands shook as he confessed to paying bribes for contracts. They said I'd lose everything if I spoke. Amina listened with the patience of soil absorbing rain. Today, you keep what you earned with honesty, she said, sketching a fair contract on napkin paper. Daniel's eyes watered, not from the tea, but from the relief of seeing honesty breathe again. The vendor's shoulders lifted as if a stone rolled away. The board gathered in pressed suits, pressing doubts. One member sneered, "Who is she?" Daniel's reply was quiet thunder. "The one who found our leaks and saved your dividends from drowning." Amina stood tall, her words woven from proverbs and numbers alike. "A king whose people starve is a king of bones," she said, pointing to her ledger map. Silence followed, broken only by the tick of the clock. Even the most skeptical felt the weight of truth carried on her voice. Kifaru pivoted like a matatu swerving to avoid a pothole, abrupt but necessary. Vanity projects were cut, ghost fleets sold, and solar cold storage built for perishables. Amina designed a profit-sharing plan tied to honesty and community. "Sunlight keeps the granary full," she said. Daniel stood taller though illness gnawed deeper. "Promise me," he whispered. "If I falter, you will keep walking." Amina touched her bracelet. "We walk, because children are watching." The room was silent. then slowly filled with nods like seedlings rising after rain. Word spread through Nairobi like wind through grass. Vendors spoke of fair contracts. Drivers whispered of honest tallies. At Uhuru Park, an elder with eyes like rivers told Amina, "When a river clears, fish return." She listened, pigeons bobbing at her feet. Daniel watched from a bench beneath jacaranda blossoms, a hand pressed subtly against his ribs. He did not speak of hospitals or scans, only of gratitude. The elder smiled. "Child, destiny does not knock. It waits inside you." That night, Daniel sat at a desk lit only by a lamp. He wrote letters like prayers, to his lawyers about reforms, to his board about protecting transparency, and one sealed envelope marked Amina. To a child not yet born, he wrote, "Kindness is strategy, compassion is wealth." He did not confess his illness, only his faith that seeds planted would bloom. Elders say, when the drum calls, a dancer must rise. He folded the last letter with trembling hands, tears wetting the ink. External auditors arrived with clipped voices and sharpened pencils. Amina welcomed them with open ledgers and open doors. "Tell the story as if your grandmother must understand it," she instructed employees. The numbers, scrubbed of shadows, gleamed like water in a clean calabash. Variance fell, margins returned. Auditors exchanged impressed nods, surprised by efficiency born of compassion. "Simple as strong," Amina said. Daniel smiled, his body weaker but his hope ironclad. Sunlight had entered every drawer. In the back seat of a taxi, Amina pressed her palm against her belly as a sharp stitch of pain whispered early. The bracelet on her wrist clicked, turquoise, amber, turquoise, like a metronome of destiny. The old driver glanced at her in the mirror. "Even lions rest before they roar," he advised. She smiled faintly. "I will rest when the granary door is mended." Outside, the city rolled by in ribbons of gold light, and the unborn child shifted as if listening. In the lobby of Kafaru Group, a new plaque was unveiled, Community First Vendors. Names once whispered in fear now shone in brass. Applause echoed off marble and glass as Amina spoke. "A company is only as rich as the families it keeps from hunger." Daniel stood nearby, leaning on a slim black cane, not for balance, but for honesty. His gaze lingered on Amina with pride. She met his eyes and nodded, understanding that trust was the greatest contract. In the break room, someone poured heirloom beans onto a table, red and speckled as if painted by ancestors. Amina held them gently. "Profit is a river. Let it irrigate, not flood," she said, suggesting a program to help women start kitchens and bookkeep properly. Daniel approved, his smile faint but real. "If we sow well, the next harvest will tell the truth." His voice carried both hope and farewell. Amina felt the weight of seeds, as though they carried two futures, the company's and her child's. The bank's marble felt colder than the morning. Amina laid out a plan as clean as rainwater: transparent supplier terms, phased repayments, solar savings, profit-sharing tied to compliance. The officer's pen hovered like a wary bird. Daniel's silence was not absence, but faith. He let Amina's clarity light the room. "A granary with careful doors keeps children fed," she said. The officer's features softened. Numbers love honesty. When approval came, conditional but real, Amina exhaled. Hope is not a shout. Sometimes it is a careful nod. Outside, Nairobi looked brighter, as if the city had washed its face. Progress angers the shadows. Amina found a folded note tucked under her clipboard. "Stop digging." She read it twice, then looked out the window at a city that had learned to survive many kinds of weather. "Fear speaks loudly when truth walks in," she murmured. Daniel examined the paper, jaw firm, and called security without spectacle. "We will keep working," Amina said, voice steady. She chose to answer darkness with daylight, another staff forum, another open ledger. Nairobi tensed for a moment, then breathed. Courage is a habit made of small repetitions. In a community hall with peeling paint and generous light, women gathered around neat stacks of onions and notebooks. Amina taught ledgers the way elders teach songs, line by line until it sticks in the heart. "Profit is a river. Let it irrigate, not flood," she said, mapping bulk by rotations and shared cold storage. Laughter rose when numbers balanced for the first time, a music sweeter than drums. Daniel stood at the doorway, hands clasped, watching small beginnings grow sturdy roots. This was the Nairobi story he wanted written, one where kindness paid dividends. Resistance arrived perfumed and punctual. Mr. Kibet, a middle manager with a polished smile, presented the board a slide deck suggesting Amina's disruptions risked brand stability. Stability without honesty is a house on sand, she replied, then displayed reconciled ledgers, improved margins, and supplier testimonials. Data trumped perfume. Daniel said little, only moved the meeting toward open votes. The room's temperature changed. Even doubt prefers facts when the wind rises. Mr. Kibet's smile thinned, a silk ribbon fraying under the weight of truth. A journalist requested a story. Make it about community, not me, Amina said. They toured the cold storage, the vendor plaque, and the open ledgers. Kindness is not soft, she told the camera. It is a structure strong enough to carry a city. Daniel watched in quiet reflection. A mirror in the glass caught his face, older than yesterday, younger than tomorrow. The segment aired that evening, measured, dignified. Viewers heard an African folktale retold in spreadsheets and sunlight. On a stairwell between floors, Daniel's breath snagged like fabric on a nail. He leaned on the rail until the world steadied. Amina, arriving with a stack of vendor reports, noticed the pallor that no camera would catch. "Tea," she said, offering no pity, only presence. "Tea," he agreed, managing a smile. Elders say, "The strong do not shout, they endure." He folded the moment into silence, but the story felt it. A drumbeat that missed a beat and then carried on, softer, truer. At his office table, Daniel slid a thin folder toward Amina. Governance frameworks, whistleblower protections, vendor councils. Companies are languages, he said. We must teach ours to tell the truth. Amina nodded, editing a clause that guaranteed community seats at quarterly reviews. A child learns to walk by holding a steady hand, she said. The moment felt almost tender, two signatures that would outlast their shadows. Somewhere in the city, the wind shifted, destiny exhaled. On the factory floor, a clattering sound rose, metallic and wrong. Amina halted the line with a raised palm. She spotted a loose guard near a conveyor. No accident yet, but haste is a careless cook. Foreman Otis nodded at her calm authority, fixed the guard, and ran a safety checklist. Better a slow harvest than a burned field, Amina said, and workers smiled, relief passing from face to face. Daniel later praised the pause that saved a day's wages and a lifetime of regret. Nairobi at Night is a book of lit windows. Daniel stood at the glass, the city laid out like constellations that learned to breathe on earth. He thought of the letters in his drawer and the one conversation he still owed Amina, the full truth of his illness, his wealth, and his plan. He pressed his palm to the glass. When the drum stops, the dance remembers, he whispered. He would tell her soon, after one more milestone, one more sunrise. A rival appeared with smiles too polished, offering to buy kafaru at a merciful price. Mercy like that taste of vinegar. The board wavered. Amina proposed a counter, open books briefings for community vendors, a modest rights issue for employees, and anchor investment from regional partners aligned with their ethics. When a house is clean, guests remove their shoes, she said. Daniel guided the room, and this time doubt found no purchase. The rival's grin cracked. The gate stayed sturdy. Outside, the jacarandas let fall a purple applause. Not all battles live in boardrooms. One evening, as Amina walked toward the bus stop, whispers floated from a narrow alley. She stirs too much. The words slithered but did not strike. Daniel, leaning on his cane, intercepted her path. Fear follows progress, he said quietly. Amina touched her bracelet. And courage walks faster. They continued together, the city's hum wrapping around them. Elders say, the owl may hoot at night, but the dawn still comes. Deep in the finance office, an accountant named Ms. Adino brought forth a thick ledger, fingers trembling but eyes steady. These numbers, they never added, she confessed. Amina encouraged her gently. Truth grows stronger when spoken. Together, they mapped false invoices back to a clique of managers. Daniel listened, admiration filling the space between them. Even paper has memory, Amina said. Ms. Adino signed a testimony, her hands steady now. Truth had found another ally. News spread across Nairobi markets. Kafaru had changed its tune. Vendors spoke of payments on time, mothers spoke of bulk buying groups, and workers spoke of fair shifts. When the drumbeat changes, even the dancers notice. An old man at Jacamba Market chuckled. Amina visited stalls, her belly leading like a lantern. She heard gratitude and skepticism alike. Both are part of honest music. Daniel walked a step behind, proud yet shadowed by fatigue, his cough hidden beneath applause. Near midnight, Daniel's phone buzzed. A voice offered him money to slow Amina down. He listened in silence, then replied, "Kafaru will no longer be bought with shadows." He hung up and coughed until tears blurred the room. Amina, awakened by the sound, found him at the window. "Storms test the roof," she said, handing him water. He nodded, voice thin but resolute. "Our roof will hold." Outside, Nairobi glimmered as if listening. During Nairobi's city festival, lanterns floated above Uhuru Park like stars released from the earth. Amina walked slowly, guided by music, her bracelet catching the glow. Daniel joined her, cane tapping softly, eyes reflecting light. "You've given them a story to believe in," he whispered. She replied, "Stories belong to the people." A child handed her a lantern, and she released it skyward, whispering, "May truth rise higher than fear." The crowd cheered, unaware they were part of a prophecy unfolding. Another meeting thundered with division. Some executives praised reforms, others hissed about lost control. Mr. Kibet pushed again for restraint. Amina stood steady. A cow with two masters dies of thirst. She presented proof, profits rising, debts shrinking, vendors loyal. Daniel spoke briefly. "Integrity is not a style, it is a foundation." The room, split like dry wood, began to lean toward Amina's fire. Resistance flickered, but truth warmed more than lies could chill. Late at night, Daniel found himself unable to rise from his chair. Pain pressed like an invisible hand. Amina entered quietly, placed tea by his elbow, and said nothing. Silence became a bridge between them. He whispered finally, "If I leave, promise you will not let the dance stop." Amina, hand on her belly, replied, "The dance began before you. It will go on." Sometimes the strongest vows are forged in silence, not speech. Amina's old teacher, Mrs. Mwend, arrived at the office with pride shining like morning. "You counted books like others count beads," she said. "Now you count futures." Amina embraced her, belly pressing between them, tears softening her strength. Daniel watched quietly, realizing that wisdom is passed not just in ledgers, but in love. Mrs. Mwend clasped Amina's bracelet, whispering, "Your child will inherit more than wealth. They will inherit courage." The moment was tender, stitched with generations. Kafaru launched an internal forum. Workers could speak openly to leadership. The hall filled with drivers, cleaners, accountants, receptionists. Amina listened first, then spoke of fairness and unity. "A company is only strong if its weakest hand holds bread at night," she said. Daniel closed the session. "This is our audit of hearts." Applause rose like a tide. For once, the board did not resist. Even power enjoys being trusted when it remembers its humanity. Morning spilled gold across Nairobi's skyline. Amina and Daniel stood by the glass, watching traffic weave like veins of a living heart. "Do you feel it?" he asked. She nodded. "The city has begun to trust again." He smiled faintly, weary but proud. She touched her belly. "And the child inside me already knows that trust is wealth." Elders say, "The sun rises not to be thanked, but to remind us to begin again." Their reflections glowed, past, present, and future braided in one window pane. Daniel finally yielded to Amina's insistence, a visit to the clinic. The doctor's words were soft but heavy, like rain on tin, late-stage illness, time uncertain. Daniel met Amina's gaze, offering no denial, only quiet acceptance. She reached for his hand. "Even the strongest tree sheds leaves," she whispered, "but its roots remain." He nodded. For the first time, the billionaire allowed another to see the full weight he carried. Outside, Nairobi kept moving, unaware of the storm inside one man's chest. They left the clinic and wandered into a nearby garden, where bougainvillea spilled color like forgiveness. Amina walked slowly, her belly leading, while Daniel leaned on his cane. "You built towers," she said, "but your greatest legacy may be bread for the hungry." He smiled faintly. "And you?" Amina, have taught me to count differently. Elders say, wisdom is a tree that grows shade before fruit. Together, they sat beneath the shade, their silence heavier than speeches, lighter than fear. Daniel called for a company-wide assembly. His voice, though weakened, carried like a drum. Kafaru has stumbled because of shadows. But now we walk in sunlight. Then he turned to Amina. This woman, who began with nothing but wisdom, saved us. Applause thundered. Amina stepped forward, hand on belly. I did not save you. We saved each other. A river does not flow alone. The hall rose with applause again, echoing beyond glass walls into Nairobi's beating heart. Mr. Kibet whispered with rivals again, but this time he was overheard by a driver loyal to Amina. When confronted, Kibet folded like wet paper. I only wanted to protect my position, he stammered. Amina's reply was calm. A hand that steals bread cannot bless its own children. Daniel dismissed him, quietly but firmly. Trust, once broken, does not patch easily. Elders say, a cracked pot may carry water once, but not twice. Amina returned to her old neighborhood, where corrugated iron roofs clanged with memory. Neighbors marveled at her transformation, though she still carried herself with the same humility. Children gathered to touch her bracelet, giggling. You look like you carry a future, one elder woman said. We all do, Amina replied. Daniel watched quietly from a distance, cane resting, realizing this was her kingdom, not glass towers, but human hearts stitched together with kindness. Vendors invited Amina and Daniel to a simple dinner. Ugali, sukuma, and laughter served more richly than silver platters. They prayed together for honest harvests and strong families. A company that eats with its people will never starve, Amina said. Daniel lifted his cup, eyes shining. For once, illness did not win the night. The meal ended with song, voices threading like fabric under Nairobi's stars. Alone in his bathroom, Daniel studied his reflection. His suit fit looser, his shoulders narrower. He removed his glasses, rubbed his face, and whispered, time. He had wealth, but no bargaining power with fate. Elders say, even the mighty bow before the drum of mortality. Amina knocked gently. We walk together, she said through the door. He put his glasses back on and smiled faintly, preparing once more to face the world. Daniel called a lawyer and finalized papers, a succession plan that placed Amina as CEO and her unborn child as sole heir. He explained quietly, this company must live beyond me, rooted in honesty. The lawyer raised an eyebrow, but obeyed. Amina sat beside him, silent, absorbing the magnitude. Elders say, the child of today may hold the staff of tomorrow. The contract was signed, dawn breaking through the blinds as witness. The board was stunned when Daniel announced his plan, Amina as CEO. Murmurs swelled like restless rain. She has no pedigree, one member hissed. Daniel raised his cane gently. Pedigree did not save this company. Her wisdom did. Amina stood with quiet strength. I did not walk alone. Every driver, vendor, and worker lifted me. I will serve them all. Silence held. Then applause broke, reluctant but growing. A seed had been planted in reluctant soil. That evening, Amina and Daniel stood on the balcony overlooking Nairobi's pulsing lights. The city is a river, he said softly. Sometimes muddy, sometimes clear, but always moving. She nodded, hand resting on her belly. And every river seeks the sea. Their reflections shimmered in the glass. A man nearing his sunset, a woman carrying dawn within her. Elders say, the river forgets no drop, just as destiny forgets no step. Together, they leaned into the wind, carrying both burden and blessing. Daniel sat in his study, pen in hand, but the words slipped through him like water. He wanted to leave instructions, blessings, final wisdom. Instead, he wrote one line. Kindness is the only coin that never loses value. His hand trembled before the page was complete. Amina entered quietly, placed her palm on the letter, and said, the words you've already lived will speak louder than anything written. Elders say, the best testament is a life well lived. The illness came like a thief in the night. Daniel shivered under blankets, fever painting his skin with pallor. Amina sat by his side, dipping a cloth in cool water, whispering proverbs into the room like protective charms. Even the fire must rest when the rain falls, she murmured. His eyes opened briefly, gratitude flickering. The city outside kept humming, but within those walls, time slowed. Hope was no longer loud. It was a quiet hand on a burning brow. One dawn, as Daniel slept more peacefully, Amina felt her child kick strong against her ribs. She pressed his hand to her belly when he stirred awake. His eyes widened, and for the first time in days, laughter escaped him. "He will be strong," Daniel whispered. "She will be wise," Amina corrected gently. They laughed together, and for a heartbeat, illness and fear fell silent. Elders say, every child carries the rhythm of tomorrow in their heartbeat. Despite weakness, Daniel insisted on one last board session. Amina walked him into the chamber, her presence a steadying anchor. He outlined a roadmap: community-first supply chains, open audits, long-term sustainability. Then he placed his cane on the table. Leadership must walk forward, not lean back. All eyes turned to Amina. Her calm resolve filled the room. Even the skeptics bowed inwardly to inevitability. Destiny had chosen her. Rain tapped the office windows as Daniel lingered late, staring at the skyline he once ruled. Amina entered with tea. He took a sip, his hands trembling less. "The city will forget my towers," he said, "but not your kindness." She answered softly, "Kindness builds towers no storm can erase." Outside, thunder murmured. Inside, two souls shared a quiet truth. Legacy is not marble or money, but the lives it strengthens. They visited Uhuru Park once more. An elder woman clasped Amina's bracelet and whispered, "You walk carrying two worlds, the child and the company. May both be guided by compassion." She pressed Daniel's shoulder gently. The sunset does not compete with the sunrise. Daniel closed his eyes, tears hidden but not denied. Elders say, the blessing of the old becomes the shelter of the new. They left the park lighter, though clouds still gathered overhead. Daniel began to walk slower, each step measured. Amina adjusted her pace, arm brushing his. "Even rivers slow before they join the sea," she said. He smiled faintly. At the elevator, he leaned heavier on the cane. She pressed the button, eyes forward, refusing pity. Two reflections in the metal door glowed back, one fading, one rising. Elders say, strength is not in speed but in the journey shared. Daniel gathered the board one last time. "I have built towers, but towers cannot outlive truth. Amina will lead you." Murmurs rose but faded under his gaze. Amina stepped forward. "This is not my crown. It belongs to every driver, vendor, cleaner, and mother who trusted me." The board bowed to inevitability. In that moment, Daniel passed more than authority, he passed faith. Elders say, the strongest torch is lit by hands ready to burn. The day came when Amina felt the first pangs of labor. Daniel insisted on accompanying her, though weakness painted his face pale. At the hospital doors, he whispered, "I will wait here until your dawn arrives." She gripped his hand tightly. "Then you will see the sunrise twice," she said. Elders say, life and death often pass each other in the same corridor. Nurses guided her in as Daniel sank into a chair, cane resting across his lap. Night bled into morning as cries of new life rose from the ward. At the same hour, Daniel's breath grew shallow in the waiting chair, cane slipping from his fingers. His last smile was toward the sound of Amina's newborn. A nurse found him gone, peaceful, eyes closed as if in prayer. Elders say, the sun sets as the moon rises, but both light the earth in turn. The baby's first cry and Daniel's last breath became a single note in Nairobi's eternal drum. The ward filled with a sound older than cities, a newborn's first cry. Amina's eyes flooded as the nurse laid the child on her chest. "Welcome, little light," she whispered. Soon, the gentle news came. Daniel had slipped away in the waiting chair, peaceful as evening. Grief folded into wonder, a river joining the sea. Elders say, where one lamp fades, another is lit. Amina kissed her child's brow and felt both loss and promise rising like dawn over Nairobi. A lawyer arrived softly, as if walking on the edges of grief. He placed an envelope on the bedside table, Amina written in Daniel's hand. Inside, "Compassion is your compass. Let it guide the company and my people." The will named her CEO and the newborn as heir. Amina wept quietly, not for the crown, but for the man who trusted the poor to lead the rich. Elders say, the seed remembers the tree. She pressed the letter to her heart. The boardroom became a chapel of resolve. Amina, still tender from birth, spoke with a voice braided of sorrow and strength. We honor Daniel by completing the work he began. Sunlight in all ledgers. Bread for all families. The board, moved by her steadiness, ratified the will. She accepted the title not as a jewel, but as a hoe for tilling the future. Outside, Nairobi's traffic hummed the ordinary miracle of going on. They held a memorial in the company atrium. Sunlight fell in sheets, a benediction. Stories were told. The quiet kindnesses, the sudden reforms. The cane laid gently on tables like a baton passed on. Amina cradled her baby and spoke last. Daniel taught us that wealth is not how high we build, but how wide we shelter. Lanterns were lit and set along the lobby steps. Elders say, a good name is a traveling lamp. The city seemed to bow its head. On her first full day as CEO, Amina signed policies that had waited for courage. Open procurement dashboards, vendor councils, maternity and paternity support, mental health days, and a transparent grievance path. A firm that feeds its people will be fed by them, she said. Executives exchanged looks, some skeptical, more relieved. The newborn slept in a carrier by her side, the smallest board observer in history. Elders say, a house built with laughter stands longer. Markets tremble when leadership changes. Shares dipped like grass in wind. Rumors rattled the air. Amina convened investors and staff, unfolded the numbers, and pointed to communities already blooming from Kafara's reforms. A river that irrigates many fields does not run dry, she said. Calm returned, not as thunder but as rain. Elders say, steady hands, steady hearts. Afterward, in the quiet of her office, she nursed the child and whispered, we will walk this river together. Amina named the child Nuru, light. She spoke the name aloud on the balcony at sunrise, Nairobi opening like a well-read book. You are the heir not to wealth alone, she whispered, but to mercy, courage, and the duty to feed many. She pressed Daniel's letter to her heart and felt both absence and company. Elders say, a name is a road. Nuru stirred, tiny hand uncurling as if to grasp the morning itself. The first vendor council gathered, farmers, drivers, shopkeepers, auditors, and 2 community elders. Amina chaired with a listening heart. They spoke of fair prices, pickup schedules, safety, and shared savings. When many carry the pot, the soup reaches everyone hot, she said, smiling. Minutes were posted publicly by day's end. Elders say, transparency is the drum that gathers dancers. Across the city, phones lit with cautious hope. The community kitchens launched like seedlings after rain. Mothers learned ledgers, fathers took shifts, teenagers packaged sauces with pride. Amina visited with Nuru in her arms, and laughter followed like birds. Profit is a river, she reminded them, and every stream must feed a home. Products sold out at the first market stall. Elders say, teach a hand to count, and it will count blessings. Kafara's logo looked different now, less like a brand, more like a promise. In the corporate lobby, the rhino emblem stood the same, yet everything felt changed. Workers arrived early, vendors signed quickly, auditors smiled real smiles. Amina, with Nuru dozing on her shoulder, paused by Daniel's portrait. We will keep walking, she promised. The city outside answered with its 1,000-footed rhythm. Buses, footsteps, bicycles, birds. Elders say, when the drumbeat is honest, the dance becomes a prayer. Nairobi had not grown richer overnight, but it had grown kinder, and that is a beginning. Amina held her first investor forum with Nuru asleep in a sling across her chest. She presented numbers, profits rising, debts shrinking, kitchens thriving. Transparency has more return than speculation, she said. Investors, accustomed to cold suits, shifted in their chairs at the warmth of this new leadership. Elders say, when the mother cooks, the whole village eats. Even skeptics began to see that Amina's motherhood and leadership were not weaknesses, they were her strength. In the lobby, Daniel's cane was placed beside his portrait, a brass plaque beneath. He taught us that kindness is wealth. Workers paused as they passed, bowing slightly. Amina stood holding Nuru, whispering, your father in spirit. Elders say, the staff of the elder becomes the staff of the child. Visitors saw not only a company, but a shrine to integrity. And the plaque glowed not with gold, but with truth. Months later, at Kariakar market, women called out blessings as Amina passed with Nuru. "You fed us bread when we had crumbs," one said. "May your child never know hunger," another sang. Elders say, blessings weigh more than coins. She smiled humbly, buying vegetables and laughing with stall owners. For the first time, she realized she was not just CEO, she was custodian of a story Nairobi itself was telling. At a community gathering, an elder drummed slowly, chanting, "Every generation must write its proverb." Amina rose with Nuru on her lap. "Our proverb," she said, "is that compassion is the new wealth." The crowd cheered, the drumbeat rising until it matched the heartbeat of the city. Elders say, "A drum heard by many cannot be silenced." That night, Nairobi spoke in a new rhythm, the rhythm of shared dignity. Kafaru's logo, once a corporate stamp, now appeared on sacks of affordable flour, solar fridges, and school notebooks. "This rhino feeds," joked the radio announcer. Sales grew, but so did respect. Elders say, the name that feeds becomes a household song. Amina, reviewing reports late at night, smiled at the numbers. Beside her, Nuru gurgled in sleep. The brand was no longer Daniel's alone. It was Nairobi's, and it had a conscience. Former rivals tried once more to tempt the board with offers. This time, Amina entered holding Nuru. "If you sell our bread, you sell your children's supper," she said simply. The board, once divided, now stood united. Rivals left shaking heads, muttering. Elders say, truth carried by a mother cannot be bribed. Amina kissed Nuru's forehead as the doors shut. The company's fate was sealed by honesty, not greed. Amina visited a school funded by Kafaru profits. Children recited multiplication tables with voices like birds. She placed Nuru on her lap, listening as teachers thanked her for desks and books. "A nation is built in classrooms," she said. Elders say, the ink of a child today is the map of tomorrow. The children's laughter echoed through the hall like the promise of a better Nairobi. Amina approved new branches, not glass towers, but rural depots, solar fridges, and training centers. "Growth must carry many on its back," she said. Reports showed healthier profits and healthier families. Elders say, the tree that grows wide gives better shade. As she signed papers, Nuru cooed, and she laughed softly. Even the ink seemed to write itself, guided by a destiny larger than any one hand. Vendors organized a festival in Amina's honor. Stalls brimmed with food, drums rolled, dancers swirled in bright fabrics. She arrived with Nuru, greeted like royalty but honored as kin. Elders say, a leader who eats with her people will not go hungry. She tasted maize roasted on charcoal, laughed with children, and clapped to the rhythm. The city had adopted her child as its own, a symbol of a dawn born from dusk. 1 year later, the board renewed her contract unanimously. "You are not just CEO," one said. "You are our compass." She replied simply, "I am only the mirror of your workers' truth." Elders say, when truth seats itself, no chair is too small. The meeting ended not with applause, but with silence, the kind of silence that honors something sacred. On national radio, a griot narrated her tale. A homeless mother became the keeper of a nation's bread. Amina listened from her office, Nuru in her arms. "Do you hear, little one? Even the air carries your father's song." Elders say, a good story walks without feet. Outside, boda riders repeated the tale, and shopkeepers retold it. The city had made her story its folktale. With profits, Amina built a school of business for street children. "No child should learn numbers by hunger," she declared. Elders say, teach a child to count kindness, and they will multiply it. Children laughed in bright classrooms where once they had hustled on corners. Amina walked among them, Nuru on her hip, her heart swelling at the sight of futures unshackled. One morning, Nuru took her first steps across the office floor, toddling toward Daniel's portrait. Staff applauded softly, some wiping tears. "She walks where her father dreamed," Amina whispered. Elders say, the child carries the unfinished journey. The small feet pattering on marble sounded louder than any boardroom speech. The heir had begun her path, not in wealth, but in steps guided by memory. Years later, Nairobi's skyline gleamed, But the true wealth was seen in kitchens, classrooms, and contracts signed in honesty. Amina, older now, watched Nuru play in the gardens of Uhuru Park. "Your father left towers," she said softly, "but you will leave shade." Elders say, legacy is not stone, but shelter. The drumbeat of Nairobi had changed forever, one that mixed sorrow and joy into the rhythm of survival and hope. In the years that followed, griots told the story across Kenya, of a homeless mother who saved a company, of a dying man who entrusted his kingdom to compassion, of a child named Nuru who carried light. Elders say, wealth fades, but kindness endures. And so the city remembered not skyscrapers, but the rhythm of mercy written in ledgers, kitchens, and children's laughter. The folktale closed, but its drumbeat still echoed in every honest heart. And so this African folktale finds its ending, but its lesson lives on. Amina, once a homeless woman in Nairobi, rose to become a CEO guided by compassion. Daniel Kamau, the billionaire who once ruled towers, left not riches but wisdom. Wealth fades, but kindness endures. And little Nuru, born as one life ended and another began, carries the light of tomorrow. This is not just the story of a company saved. It is a Kenyan folktale of love, sacrifice, leadership, and hope. May it remind us all that the greatest wealth is not money, but the kindness we leave behind.